Well, thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate taking the time. Let's start off with a question that I always ask, my guests. When you hear the word authenticity, or when people tell you to be your authentic self, what comes to mind? Like, yeah, what does that mean to you?
Authenticity. What comes to mind to me is a word that I often use that is alignment. Alignment with being coherent or congruent with what you think, what you do, what you say, and how you feel. Because when those things align, then what comes across is like a single message or a single voice, actually in public speaking, this is one of the topics that we often touch base in, and people say, I don't know why, but sometimes I speak and people don't understand what I'm saying, and then they take me as non-authentic. And I ask them, so what were you doing? What were you thinking? What words did you use? And so then I watch them, or I watch a video or something, and I was like, you're saying this, but you're doing this other thing. And it's pretty much like when somebody asks you, how do you do you like this person, and you go like, oh my gosh, he's amazing, Pavel is the best, but your head is saying no. Right? And so I am not being authentic because I am not aligned with my nonverbal communication and what I'm saying. And it happens in such a short it's like seconds, that people cannot tell, you know what, when I spoke to Pavel said something with his mouth, but his body said something else. So he was not being authentic with his feelings. Like, people don't go to that, right? The micro expressions, no. The only thing that people perceive, because it's a matter of seconds, is there's something off with Pavel.
Mm-hmm.
Off, just off. And so for me, being authentic is that. And it has nothing to do with also many of the things that people sometimes have said of, I'm going to use curse language because that's my authentic me. So they confuse being authentic with having to use foul language, so that people say, the more me, or I'm going to tell everybody my deepest feelings, whether they're good or bad, they have to take it because they're mine, and I'm being authentic. And I was like, oh, that's another way of, it has nothing to do with authenticity.
That's yeah, no, that's so interesting. And I love the fact that you teach people and coach people on public speaking, because for so many people, that's their worst fear, being in front of a crowd and, just speaking to them, telling the story. And before we get into that, I'd love to know, were you always aligned with those four things? Like, what was that like for you? What was that journey like?
No, of course not. This alignment that you see now, it's actually work in progress, no? Because I think that there's no such thing as the state of being, that it's so perfect that there's nothing to improve. On the contrary, I've been finding this, the more I know, the less the more I know, the less I know, like type of, like, I have been now finding, oh my God, I need to change all these things to continue looking for that alignment. However, what you see right now is the closest version of alignment that I've ever been in my life. And have I ever been aligned? Absolutely not. Let's begin with something. Minue Yoshida. Minue Kumiko Yoshida Kano, my whole name. Growing up in Mexico City, my friends were named Maria, Alejandra, Claudia, Guadalupe, right? And I always complain to my parents, why couldn't you just think of a name to give me that I could use with my friends instead of having to make all this stuff, no? So in order to blend, I played a lot of roles and a lot of things and circumstances to blend. The only half Japanese at school. So of course, every joke on me, right? And then Yoshida, oh my God. When people say like, somebody's bullying me for my name, and I was like, oh, don't even go there. It's like, and that's why when people ask me, how do you say your name? I say, I don't care. I really don't care. Because with a name like Minue Kumiko Yoshida, it's like, Kano. Like, come on. I'm not picky. I believe people will say your name with the intention, right? Is what I carry is about intention, because you can call me honey and sweetheart and all this, but with a bad intention, right? So who cares about what they're saying? It's coming from the heart. People have called me Mimi, Memi, Menu, Manu, and I don't care. And being authentic or not authentic has been about, are people understanding? Not understanding is the word. Are people? Well, yeah. Wait, is understanding where I'm coming from? Does it make sense? So you have this like Latina woman growing up in Mexico City, but with some Japanese traditions that I was not even aware, Pavel. I was not aware. I didn't know how much of me was Japanese until I left the country. And then my husband told me like, oh, that's pretty much your father. And I was like, oh, it is? Ah, yay. So I'm discovering myself as a grown-up woman. And then
oh, sorry, go for it.
No. And then I was going to tell you that, and then going to Japan gave me like the whole peripheral view of, that's my other, that's why we behave like this. That's why we look like this. And my father makes these noises, like very Japanese. Like, I know, I understand. But growing up, having to almost play the game to be accepted at school, and then accepted in the playground, no? And then being accepted now in the workforce. That was different because I think that as grown-ups, then we are more open-minded and all that in different workforce. So half Japanese always play this role of, oh my goodness, tell me more about it. Do you eat chopsticks with, do you take your shoes off? And then Karate Kid came. So does your father grab the flies with chopsticks like Mr. Miyagi?
Wow.
Yeah. And I was joking. It's like, there was a point where I said like, yeah, that's what we do at home.
Yeah.
Is your father black belt? Ooh, of course, and he'll kick your butt. And so
all the boys must have been terrified to come home, right?
Oh yeah,
because your dad's gonna beat him up. Yeah.
Rightfully so. My father was a bit like that.
I agree with you though. Like even something as simple as a name, I think for the most part, there isn't bad intention in it. It's just something that they haven't heard before, right? But it's so interesting. Like I personally have never been to Mexico City, and I've also never been to Japan. But growing up in Mexico City, are there a lot of children that? Well, what I'm curious about is sort of like how your parents met, and sort of like, was that in Mexico City? Is there a big Japanese influence in Mexico City? I'm just like really curious about that.
Do you want me to go? Do you want me to go back in where the boat was? There was this boat, and all the stories, and I found the boat. My father studied medicine, and he, in one of the years of his residence, what they do, I think they do it here in the US, I'm not sure, but in one of the years of residency, you have to go and serve for, I think, 1 year or 2 in a place in need. So there was this place called Torreon, Coahuila, that is near the border. I think it's under Texas, beneath Texas. And so then my mother was there, and that's how they met. And then they were boyfriend, girlfriend. My father was living in Mexico City, and this place was all the way in the north near Texas. Like, well, I don't know if people can see the map, but if you can see the map, I'm talking about 12, 14 hours of difference between one and the other. If you're driving, no? If you're in a plane, it's an hour and a half. But anyway, it's not close. So they were living in this long distance relationship with my father was in the capital in Mexico City, and my mother all the way in the north for 4 years. 4 years writing letters and
wow,
and the occasional phone call.
That's so old school. Like there was no like Instagram DMs.
Oh, I'm talking about they got married in 65, I think 65 or something like that. Something like that. 65.
Wow, that's very similar to a story. I have an aunt that married. Well, now my uncle, he is Canadian, and my aunt is from the Dominican Republic. But they were both doing a program similar to that. It wasn't medicine based, but it was some like one of those national organizations where they go to a country in need. And like my uncle, who's Canadian, went to the Dominican Republic, and they met. They started dating. And yeah, it's so interesting how that just like happens, like with different families.
It's destiny. What can I tell you?
So,
As a
so
grown-up, I can tell you that I can't think of a more contradictory or opposed culture than an Asian culture and a Latino culture. Is like it's like water and oil.
oh, tell
Yeah.
me about that. What do you mean? Like, what are some of the differences
Well,
you
like
noticed?
my father's perception of time. 7 o'clock is not like if you go at 7 and the thing was at 7, you're late. You should be at 6:45 or 6:30. It's like even before time, no? And in the Latino time, it's like, well, at 7 you're going, right? Like 7 is the time that you're going, and so that's another difference. And then or order, like Japanese are very clean, very much. It got to be like this, no? And in the Latino world, it's like that, wherever it is, and we'll find it, and it's almost like the order in the chaos type of thing. Japanese are very planned. There's always an agenda, and in the Latino one, it's like that. We'll play it by ear, and so the Japanese are much more about the present, the past, and the future. Is a timeline that is present all the time, all the time. So whatever you're doing is your ancestors are there. So we'll go centuries back. What you're doing right now, like being in the here and the now, they're very much zen and very present, and they follow this. It's not a religion. It's a way of living, the Shintoism, and it's like love, beauty, and it's love about love for everything alive, anything in nature, but it's also love for anything that is beauty and literally everything around you. But they're also thinking all the time about the future, like everything they do has a consequence in the future and planning the future. So it's a very interesting way of being. And in the Latino side, it's like pretty much the present, the here and the now. Yesterday, I forgot, tomorrow, I don't know, the here and the now. And I'm not saying one is better on the other, by the way, like it's ways of being. If you think about this, pretty much if you will put them in the blender, then you will go like, okay, we'll get a very good balanced society here. No?
Yeah,
It's been fun.
I instantly thought of that song, one of my favorite salsa songs, like "Yo no sé mañana." It's pretty much saying like live in the moment.
Exactly. That's our culture. Yo no sé mañana. Like, this is what I have
It's
today.
and I'd love to understand more around like there was external pressure around like you're mentioning the playground or children at a young age making fun of you, and they're sort of like pushing you to go a certain way. But what about you? Like, did you find yourself embracing one side versus the other? Like, how did you deal with that duality of identity between the different cultures?
But it was one after I wasn't really thinking of embracing one of the other, but it was more about navigating it, right? So it's like the river is going and I was like, oh, it's not here. Oh, okay. Oh, to the left. Oh, to the left. Okay, to the right. Fabulous. No? So I remember I don't know, I think it was 9 or 10 years old, and I went to a friend of mine to her place, Ale Levy, and we were sitting in the dining room with all our friends. And so then the soup was served, and I grabbed my bowl. I put it in my mouth, my soup, and everybody stopped eating with their spoons like this. And then I just look at them and was like, you don't do that, right? And you go like, no, got it. And I'm not 5 or 6. I mean, I'm 9 or 10 or something, but I came home and I told my parents, so people don't do that. And they was like, no, that's Japan. I was like, why didn't you tell me? And I did like that, 100 that you will not imagine. Like, they don't have doors. Well, now they do, obviously. I'm talking about like growing up and whatnot. It's like sliding doors. In actuality, there are many houses that have no doors still. Like if you go to one of those little towns, they are still just like I don't know how they're called, but they just go left and right, but they don't really close. There's not a knob.
Interesting.
And we grew up like that. Like closing doors in my house was forbidden.
Is it more so like what people in corporate America call like an open door policy, like I'm always available, that kind of
I'm
thing?
always available. My parents never closed their doors. My like we were not allowed to close the door, and so with that, many other stories that are really terrible because
Oh yeah.
because not closing doors, right? It's like it's so I remember one day that I gotta go to the bathroom. Number one, run. My brother came with his friends. Ah, so that's my mom, and that's oh, and that over there, that's my sister. And I'm like, oh my god, what is going on? And and another thing, like in Japan, they have this big pools, if you want to call them like that, with very hot water, and people get undressed, and they're naked. They're taking a big collective bath.
Wow.
Yes, and it's incredible because before you go to this amazing collective baths, you have to scrub yourself like thoroughly. So because cleanliness in Japan is a big thing, as in you can pass your finger like this in a restaurant or in one of these places, or even in public places, it's like extremely clean.
Wow.
As you have to scrub yourself and everything, and then you go to this huge public baths, and you submerge. It's a pool. Imagine a huge pool, like
It's like a huge
an
jacuzzi.
Olympic pool or something like that.
It's like a huge jacuzzi.
It's a huge jacuzzi. Thank you. Yes, hot. It's like you get there and like, ooh. Okay, and so people get there and you relax and you meditate and you breathe and you think, or some people talk. You have to talk very quietly, and people in Japan, people speak quietly. Oh, that's another difference that you were asking me between the Latino and the Japanese. Like here, the Japanese people are like very measured with their expressions, and they laugh and they cover themselves. But then the Latinos are like, with like hacia arriba, right?
Yeah.
The way this and how loud they are. But here they had to be like, woo-hoo. And then I remember that. Okay. So with that concept in mind, my mom loved it, and so she had this fantasy of having like a little bath like that at home. But again, we're in Mexico City. Well, she calls the I don't know who does this. It wouldn't be the plumber. It would be the person that was fixing
contractor. Yeah.
A contractor. She hired the contractor that fixed everything in the house. Because that's another thing in Mexico. You have one person that is the plumber, the electrician, the contractor, the one that paints everything. And so then, so he built this big thing in there, like this pool. And so I was growing up and telling my friends, well, yesterday I was taking a bath with my brothers and my sister, and my friends were like, you were what again? It's like, yeah, we were all in the bathtub and we're having fun. I was like, you take baths with your brothers, and your sister's like, yeah, you don't? And they were like, no.
What? How old was everybody?
I think my brothers were 13, 14. We were like 7, 8. Like he's 7 years older than me. So, but
that's so interesting.
But he was like, I say that's so weird.
No, interesting. Yeah.
So and here's the thing about the concept of the body in this culture is not seen with this. What is the name in English?
Like the sexuality?
Sí, como no es morboso, no es sucio.
Yeah.
Sexuality is a different thing. Sexuality is a different concept. And so me seeing my little brothers, like, we're children. There's innocence in it. Nobody was thinking of, ooh, your body. Wasn't forbidden. It was like, okay, whatever. So and that was another one with my friends. It's like, you don't know. So and then people will come to my place and have to take their shoes off.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand. I didn't even question. So because you asked me the question of if I had to embrace it,
mm-hmm.
I wasn't conscious of, okay, let me embrace this thing of taking the shoes off. No, it was like, you come home, you take your shoes. And I asked my friends, you don't? And they were like, no. And then they came to my place and they saw all the little shoes there. And I was like, so I put my shoes here? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, ew, but I'm going to be with my socks. And I said, like, yeah, but you're bringing stuff with your shoes from the streets. So they go like, yeah, but then you mop. And so it was this conversation afterwards that with time, it just makes sense. So now, Pavel, now I consciously say, which things I do want to embrace and keep. So now as an adult. So now you come to my house, mi casa, tu casa, and you take your shoes off.
Oh, I do the same thing. I make people take their shoes off. There's a, you know, now in this conversation, I'm thinking like there's a lot of parts of the Japanese culture that I want to embrace. I need to, I mean, I don't have enough space. I'll be honest. I don't have enough space in my New York City apartment for like a huge jacuzzi pool, but that's going to be a goal for
You know,
me
I
in
gotta
like in a few years.
Pavel, they have the tiniest spaces in the world, no? And so they have some. Imagine the size of a shower of a very small place, like some of the small hotels in New York, right? So it's like a bathtub, the size of a shower. That it's high until like if you stand up, it would be like more or less to your waist. And so it closes it, and you get in, but you're it's confined. It's small, so you're sitting down. It's like that.
That's so
It's
cool.
really cool. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I want to get into like, you know, you shared the experience of telling this story in Mexico City, right? And people were looking at you like you were crazy, right? What was that experience like when you moved to the US though, right?
Ooh,
Because
imagine that.
now, yeah, now you have to, well, yeah, what was that experience like coming to the US and sharing some of those stories?
Imagine this. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. As I'm juggling my Mexican side, the Japanese side in the United States, right? And oh my goodness, it's been just a beautiful trip. Let's begin with something. I was working for a company called AOL, and I remember that one of my first one of my first visits, I was meeting my homolog, my peer, and and he is a very highly respected person in a very high leadership role, right? So I come to his office and it's like, "Hi, Rod, how are you?" I grab his hand, pull the chick, kiss him. Why not? And he went like, "Whoa!" So I look at him and I was like, "Oh, you don't do that here." And he's like, "No," but I'm fine with it. I understand you're coming from another place, so it's okay. I'm not offended. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry." Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I did a
Yeah.
lot of those where I just didn't know what was accepted here. I learned here a lot of words that we don't have in our culture. TMI, too much information. Like, many times I was speaking and people go like, whoa, Minue TMI, and I'm like, TMI, no, I have no idea. What do you mean too much information? Yeah, that's like we don't need to know like that level of detail. So I was like, okay. So we don't have that. That's another cultural shock. Oh, another one. PDA. Oh my god! And there's acronyms for everything here in this country. I was like, public display of affection. I was like, what do you mean public display of affection? And so yes, people pay attention to people holding hands or kissing or hugging or walking the streets holding. Yeah. And then definitely I don't know how to, like, all right, in the United States, and I have been researching tremendously on this, there is the cultural background that is coming from the north, and I'm going all the way to England, you know, and to the cold and not cold as in people are cold, but like to the colder northern places, Nordic places, right? Where language was developed, culture was developed, language and culture are representing a way of being. They come to the United States and bring that with them. And so the people in England, for example, will say something, and then you have to almost interpret what was said because it's unspoken. Have you ever watched Sherlock?
Oh, like
The,
is it
version with the guy that did the Doctor Strange.
I didn't see Sherlock Holmes. Wait, but are you talking more so about like
the series.
I no, I haven't seen Sherlock Holmes, but
You
is
have
it
to, Pavel, this is really good. Okay, so I'm watching Sherlock, but the UK version,
Mhm.
and I have to pause it often, and I just remember my husband's like, did he mean yes, but he said no? And he goes like, yeah, that's understood. And I was like, how is that understood? Well, because it's a polite way of saying this, and that. So it's almost like we all have to be royalty, and so we have to address in a polite way. And instead of saying that we don't want to see this person again, we say we stand up and say, so Pavel, it would be great to see you again, and open the door. And that means leave, and I don't want to see you again, right? So imagine that. So like, so I said pausing is like they meant that way. So here's a phrase that I don't hear often in Mexico growing up in the Latin American countries. What do you mean? What do I mean with what? What do you mean with what you said? Because I meant what I said. I just said it. And I realized after living here and going into this language things, it's a cultural thing that people say something, you must interpret and read between the lines what you meant. It's super interesting. And so in the beginning, I thought it was a bit schizophrenic, honestly. I mean, with all the respect to everybody, I thought it was like, that's kind of schizophrenic, because you're hearing one voice, and then you're hearing other voices, and then you say something else, and then I have to guess what you were trying to say, right? And I was like, it's like when someone tells you, oh, bless your heart. So the first time I heard that, it was like, oh, that's so sweet. She told her to bless her heart. And the other person said like, no. She's actually sending her to somewhere else. It's like, well, she just said bless her heart. So
That's so interesting.
So this thing's like, ooh, cultural shocks. Now I get a lot of them. Now I understand. And now I try to navigate that. So food-wise, music-wise, dressing as well, like everything then had to flow with whatever I was in, like in corporate America. Oof, you wanted me to talk about authenticity in corporate America? Because
Please.
so you're Latina or Latino in corporate America, lots of challenges because of the way we are, because of the way we behave. We bring a lot to the plate, and I think that's why I became a very big ambassador of diversity and inclusion. And I've been working in D&I for 18 years now. I did not know that the traits were making us stronger. No, we have this capability of seeing things in another perspective, and the perspective is called si se puede. It's super interesting. So when people say, like, think outside of the box, I was like, what box? ¿De qué me hablas? I don't have a box. What? It's like, we Latinos do not know what a box is. It's like, just tell me what needs to be done and I'll make it happen. Right? Si se puede, yeah. Like, we don't have all this, oh wait, the rules and regulations and policies and hierarchies and steps to follow. Like we don't come from cultures like that. It's a very flexible one. And that flexibility is the strength that we bring to the table in corporations, because we get things solved. We're not waiting for procedures and manuals and instructions. We don't read instructions. We figure it out. And that in one hand, right? And so having to play the game then in corporations was like, oh, there's a manual. I gotta read the whole manual. I gotta abide by this. So let's say that my territory is New York, but there's an emergency in Chicago, but that's not my territory. I can't go there. No, you can't. Okay, why not? Because that's not your territory. But they have an emergency, but that's not your territory. So there's nobody that is going to help them. Oh, well. It's like, oh, wait, what? So you have to play the game and try to comply as best as possible and say, okay, I won't go there. Can I have a video conference and then help them? Oh, we didn't think about that. Okay, good, resolved. because the other one is not possible. That also now translated into small everyday things, Pavel. The way that we dress. Oh my God, me showing up with this beautiful Guatemalan piece of art was a deal, you know. One time I show up with a necklace that my friend from Venezuela brought from me, and I was wearing it here, and it's full of colors and then big earrings. And someone in my team said, "Vas a un carnaval? Are you going to a carnival?"
Wow.
And I understand he didn't mean it in a bad way, but I took it as, oh, maybe that's too much. So then I tuned myself down, and then I was laughing and I was very joyful, and it was frowned upon. It was frowned upon because then I moved to a team where there was no Latinos or anything else, and the conversations were very much to the point. We go to the meeting, we finish the meeting. Here is the thing: I don't care about your mom, your dad, your dog, what you eat, if you have a party, if you have your children, blah blah blah. Business is business, pum 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 pum, right? Little I knew I was becoming that, and so I was suppressing that part. No? So the way that I interacted, the way that I dressed, the thought processes of even planning an event, like what should happen. Let's have an ice-breaking session. I was like, no, we're gonna go blah blah blah. I ended up with black suits, dark blue, and brown and gray. And when I started my business, Pavel, 2 years after I started my business, so I've been in business 5 years now, so somewhere in between here in the middle.
And why, sorry,
Yeah.
why did you want to start a business? Is it because you found yourself like hiding who you were? Did you see a problem that you wanted to solve? Like, why exactly did you
No,
start it?
I think it's one of the serendipities in life that just happen, and this cliche of blessing in disguise actually happens. So it's beyond the cliche now. It's actually a matter of fact. It's a scientific fact that everything happens for a reason, that everything has a timing, and that you just have to be in the right place in the right time. For many, many years, I have been invited to be a speaker, keynote speaker, or just a guest or something like that in many of my corporations, where they said, hey, Minue, so can you give a speech, an opening speech for this? And I was like, sure, right? And I started doing that much more because I was engaged in the ERG, the employee resource groups. And as I was getting engaged with these groups or business resource groups, I was doing it now more often and also more purposefully directed to something, no? It wasn't a social thing for me only. It was more like, it was my flag, and this is who I am, and viva el multiculturalismo, and like let's be multicultural, let's open to everyone. So I started carrying that flag and putting it in front and pursuing that. And and so then the more I was doing that, the more I was called to speak in many places. And I recall instances, at least 2 or 3 of them, that really marked me, where I was in my element. I was in my bliss. We call this there's this philosophy called ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like finding my ikigai. Oh, I have to tell you about that, but later. I was in my point of bliss, finding my purpose, because I was feeling it right then and there when I was speaking to people. And I have this I built this session that is called No soy yo, eres tú, which is, it's not me, it's you. And it was about corporations understanding that we Latinos bring these amazing things to the plate, and that if you're not understanding that, it's you. You're not getting that. If you get all these 5, 6, 7 things about all culture, you're going to be more productive. You're going to grow in your company. We're going to make it big. So anyway, I was doing that, and somebody came to me and said, I really love what you did. I want to hire you. But I was an employee. Wow. So it's a conflict of interest. So I said, I'm very honored, thrilled, but I can't, because I'm an employee of this company. And they go, oh, what a shame, because you will be fantastic in mine. And I was like, oh, thank you. You know what? It feels so good. But then that kept me like, oof. And then I was in a conference in Goldman Sachs. in Wall Street. It was beautiful building, beautiful, huge. There were 400 women there. It was Women of Alpha, an organization for Latinos. And I remember giving this session on leadership and women in finance. And I remember this feeling of kind of fulfilling my mission as we were going through a workshop, and I asked all these women and men, they were a little bit of everything here. I asked this question: what did you have to leave behind to be where you are today? And some people started crying, and I'm like, wait. Like, ay. It was really, really intense, but I felt that ikigai again, like that my point of place is like, I can do this forever. And then as I was about to leave, someone else said, can you be our next keynote speaker? How much do you charge? You see, and I'm like, here we go again with that. It's like, no, so sorry, you can't, this and that. Oh, but where's your book? It's like, my book.
My book.
My book will come very soon. Thank you. My book will come very soon. So things have started happening to me before I started my business. I'm talking 2-3 months before that. And then I started working with a friend of mine, and a friend of Michael Jai. She has a group for Latinas. And
I just recorded my episode with her yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Es que el mundo es muy pequeño.
Pequeño, sí.
So she started gathering all this group of women in more or less in the same year, in 2014, or between the 12 and the 14. She started gathering all this group of women. She calls me one day and say, can you prepare this workshop for all these women? And it's like, of course, I would love to. Still employee of this other place. So I just started giving workshops for her group, and I loved it every time. And it was about building your own brand. I worked 4 years in Ogilvy and Mather, and in Ogilvy it's all about brand, and I understood perfectly brand promise. What is in a brand? How do you portray your brand? How do you build your tagline, your personal tagline, and all that? So put together a workshop on that, and then another one on assertive communication, for example. Right? And then we started with public speaking. And so then I started the confident public speaker. We got hired by HBO, and HBO is giving us all this coaching and all these things that we can do. And I was thinking and feeling, Pavel, have you heard the expression of the horse is before the carriage?
Yeah.
All right. So I felt that I was being chased by the horse. No, the carriage that has been chased by the horse. But I'm in the front, right? And I tell this to a friend of mine, and she said, and you're downhill. And I'm like,
Yeah.
You're downhill. And I felt so many times, Pavel, that the calling was just so loud that it says, just go do it. On 2016, actually 2015, our VP calls us and tells us, we're going to dismantle this whole department of training and development for multicultural markets, and marketing for multicultural markets, and new businesses. And so you have a few months to find something internally, or you can take your package. And I've got to say, a part of me was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't, oh my goodness. I have, without knowing it, institutionalized myself. Because it was 7 years. So I saw that company like my universe. It wasn't like right now I turn around and then it happens to be like this. And I love them a lot. I don't mean in a despective way, but in a pejorative way. But it was like the world, and I thought, what am I going to do? And then a lot of blessings happened, Pavel. One of them is I met with the VP of marketing, and the VP asked me, so here in your resume says that you speak Portuguese and that you have served the Brazilian market. So what is this about? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's not super Portuguese, it's Portuñol, I get that. But I have trained in Sao Paulo for years, so I did that. And so there's a huge population of Brazilian coming to the United States. There's a lot of investment. These are people that are willing to open businesses and invest and grow, and work for it. And some of them have money, some don't, but all of them are definitely extremely hardworking. So I go through this and I'm thinking, Pavel, are you asking me because you seriously don't know? Because then you have a problem. Or are you asking me because you're testing me? And then we have a problem as well. Like, I don't want a boss that I had to either educate on something as basic or that is testing me constantly to prove myself. So disappointment number one. Then I went to another department, which is like what I really wanted. And it was in training and development, learning and development. And I was really, really happy because this gentleman said, your reputation precedes you. We want you to stay. I have some ideas for you of things you can do.
But you were going downhill. You had this horse and carriage chasing you.
Yes.
What did you do?
Yes. And instead of saying, I'm a ninja, actually, I'm not a ninja, I'm a samurai. Because ninjas are mercenaries, so I'm not into that. Samurais are honorable and defend the emperor, so I'm a samurai. So instead of thinking, I'm a samurai, the horse is coming back, the carriage is coming back, I'm gonna jump, get the horse, settle in as we're going down, and we'll take this to the highest mountain. Instead of saying that, I got afraid.
Yeah.
I got afraid. What am I gonna do? Oh my God,
That's
my house.
That's natural. That's natural.
I just put my the offer for a house that I had to let go. We couldn't move because I just lost my pay stub, and my benefits, the medical benefits, are extremely expensive outside, and my security and the blanket, and so everything was tumbling, economically speaking, right? And so instead of thinking that I am a brave samurai, I just thought I'm going to be smashed by the horse and everything that's coming behind me. And then this blessing starts happening. And the blessing is this, Pavel, that as I am trying to seek for a brighter future or staying in the company, I am finding myself in the process. Mira, corazón, I'm meeting with this man that is telling me, where do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be here in New York. This is what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do multiculturalism because I am completely convinced that a company that calls itself true multicultural will only manifest the multiculturalism as their marketing materials and training materials are not only translated into different languages, but trained into different languages. Mm-hmm. Just think about all the processes and the infrastructure that has to happen for that. But think, most importantly, that if you do that as a corporation, who are you reaching? Because guess what? English is not the official language in the United States. Nowhere in the Constitution of the United States says that everybody should speak English. And guess what? As much as you tell people, oh, English only, don't speak English, which by the way is quite illegal, right? And by the way, people do it all the time. You can't stop what happens at my home. And at my home, I speak Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Arabic, Hebrew. That's what I speak at home. And guess what? That's what I speak with my community. So you can't stop it. And so if instead of servicing the clients, instead of servicing your community, and instead of growing your company because you're missing a bunch of people just because of that, instead of jumping into that wagon, you're just closing the doors. Yeah. And he said, so what do you want to do? And I said, where I am, and with my age and my experience, I need to be put in a place where I can shine with my own light and help others shine. And that is not an office. And when I say that, Pavel, I was like, oh my God, who spoke? Who's here? Who spoke? And I drove that afternoon with that phrase that I said, saying, muy bien, Minue, this is your time. I took my car and I called my husband and I said, I'm doing this. I'm starting my consulting firm and I am helping people shine with their own light, period. That was 2016, the beginning of the year.
What did that feel like at the moment?
Scary, relieving, adrenaline at the same time, endorphins, adrenaline, oxytocin, everything at the same time going around in a spiral. But I have to say, a good one, a very good one. I've been in business 5 years. I will never go back. I will never go back to that. You know, I will never go back to it.
Yeah.
And when I say going back, it's just I will never go back to not servicing others, to not deciding what is best for a community, to having to change the way I dress, the way I speak, the way I do my hair, the way I color my nails, because I was even questioned about it. Why were they blue or red or yellow? I won't go back to people judging and criticizing because I have an accent. Guess what I do right now in Yoshida Academy? One of my sessions is called it's not your accent, it's your diction. It's just a matter of people understanding what you're saying. That's enough. But you have an accent, oh my God, put it over here, put it over here. You have an accent, agárratelo de bandera, úsalo de estandarte, just use it as your flag, because that's the beauty of what makes you, you.
Yeah.
And instead of going there, I'm just now using everything that pushed me away from being authentic. Now I'm using it as a strength to help others be authentic themselves.
It's so we probably don't have time to get into accents, but it's so interesting.
I can come back.
No, because I do want to get into just into the coaching that you do, not on the business side, but more so like on these like individual like public speaking sessions, if you will. Well, like you do it at scale, but it's more like on an individual basis. And but the accents are so interesting because like some accents are deemed, if they hear it, they automatically think that they're uneducated. But some accents, like the British accent, people are like, oh, genius, right? It like makes you seem quote unquote more intelligent compared to another accent that someone seems as less intelligent, which is ridiculous. Right. But I do want to get into your coaching in particular with the public speaking. Like we've spoken about you in particular, some of the critiques or feedback that you've received. Like, what are some of those insecurities and things that your clients tell themselves or have heard that they're trying to work through?
So accent is one of them. And you're right. I mean, they hear the English accent. But here's the thing, Pavel, that only happens to a certain population, by the way. Mm-hmm. This hearing of the English accent and thinking that it's fantastic only happens in a Caucasian population that social, I was going to say social media, but no, it's like a movie, because that's the reality. No, it's a generation that's watched a movie and there's like, oh, wow, it's like the royal queen, so I must speak like that and doing that. But that's only that population. And for the rest of us, is like, not really. It doesn't cause me that impression at all. Like, I don't think, oh la la, they speak French, so there must be superior. It's like, speak to me because it's the love of love, is the language of love. So I'm gonna fall in love if you speak some words. It's like, so I think it's just that's more like the U.S. culture. For those of us who come from other places, we don't accept. It's not accepted. We just don't take it like that. Accent definitely is not the number one. The number one is I'm afraid of being judged. And so I always say, okay, repeat after me. I created a phrase, Pavel, that I wrote in a big board. And my participants have to say this out loud as I am teaching them nonverbal communication. And they have to say this: I don't care if you judge me. I am doing the right thing on the right way for the right reasons. My conscience is clear and my spirit is lifted. And I wrote that down, and now they had to do it, but like in with a lot of theatrical expression, right? And I tell them, who cares if somebody's judging you? Of course they're judging you. I'm judging you, you're judging me. You're like, that's not the point. The point is that you don't care about it because you're doing the right things, no? So judging one. The second one is the accent. And I always tell them, oh, beautiful. Say Jess. Everybody repeat after me. Jess. Good. Say it proud and loud. Jess, chicken, sleeper. Say it like that. So accent is another one. Another one is not being able to come up with the right vocabulary, mostly when English is not your first language. So I teach them techniques to overcome that by not obsessing into having the right word. You can have synonyms. You can describe it. You play share a state with the audience. You can give an analogy. You can paint it. You can use your hands. Like there's many things to do when the word escapes, but when you fixate on it, then it doesn't work like that. Oh, and another one is some people are very afraid of going blank, of going completely blank. And so in one of the public speaking courses that I do is improvising. That has nothing to do with, how do you call this, flying by the seat of your pants? Oh my goodness, the
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I got it. Oh my goodness, it just took me like 5 years to learn it. But this is, it's not about that. When you improvise, it's because you're really prepared. So we help them to do that as well. And those are the top, I think. After that, then it comes, I don't know what to work. I don't know if I'm going to be interesting enough. I don't know if my story is relevant. I don't know if I'm going to have a wardrobe malfunction, and what if I trip, and things like that. But the basics are those that you're saying. So I do give public speaking coaching. And now that we have COVID-19, this is the coaching that I give. And I tell them literally, what is your space? And what do you have around you? And where is the camera? And what is the angle that you should have it? I teach a lot of micro expressions, and then volume, tone, pace, cadence, meaning. So now I do this, and I do it privately. And we also have coaching sessions in group next February 24th. We're starting with the Confident Public Speaker cohort and basic program. So we'll send you all the information, of course, so you can have it. But that's what we do, and we help people be authentic and be brave.
That's so cool. And for me, it seems like it's really come full circle, right? From you in many ways trying to like figure out your own identity and what your superpower is, and like find your light, and now you're helping so many people do that. Moving forward though, like if there's one thing that, well, what is one thing that continues to inspire and empower you to continue being your most authentic self?
People like you. People like you. See, yeah, seriously, people like Angio Gando, my amazing co-founder of the academy. People like Jai, people like Jackie Camacho, that's always helping us. People that are true ambassadors of who we are, not in a way of covering it, but in a way of letting it shine outside. You know, I have to say something. My mission in life is to help one person every day. And so by the end of the year, I'll have 365 people being helped. And by I say help is when I hear, oh, I can. Oh, so I can be myself. I just hear that. And for me, it's like, that's it. That's it. Like if you say it, and it's not that I'm giving it to people, by the way, I cannot give you something you have. You are already brave. My job is to remind you that you're brave. You're already powerful. I don't empower women. It's like, Minue, can you give us empowerment? No, I cannot give you something that you possess. You have the power. I remind you of your power. Yes. Con mucho gusto. Right? And so I can do that. So what would be the one thing? This, I want to continue pursuing that ikigai, that moment of bliss, that purpose, and help other people ignite that as well. If I'm going to be the light for others, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Take my light and be lighting everybody. Everybody, lit up, speak up, stand up, make a difference, and mostly be yourself. Be yourself, and people will love you exactly as it is. And those who don't, what a blessing. Let them go. Bye. And that's it. Be yourself. When I started with this Wonder Woman thing, oh my goodness, you would have, oh wow. I have a workshop that is called the 7 Steps to Become Wonder Woman. That then I changed to 7 Steps to Become a superhero, because I had men and women, and I thought, why just Wonder Woman? Let's open this to everyone. And so I was highly criticized at the corporation for this. And they were like, come on, stop joking, and why are you dressing up? And now that I have my own business, I was like, you know what, I'm dressing up because it represents. And I wanted to represent the strength. And of course, I like that character, of course. She's fearful and she's truthful and all these things. And so I am being more me than I have ever been in my life.